Good morning, everyone. Good morning, golf enthusiasts. Thank you for joining us. My name is Derek Mousseau. I'm a regional sales manager for V1 Sports. And on behalf of everyone at V1, we want to thank you for taking the time to join us today for this very exciting webinar. We are thrilled to have our co-founder and vice president, Gary Pallas, with us, along with Dr. Doc Suttie. Doc Suttie is a pioneer of high-speed video as a feedback mechanism for golf instruction. Beyond his leadership in the technology space, Doc is a highly accomplished and recognized golf instructor, earning several teaching awards over the last 30 years. Such accomplishments include the 1990, 91, and 98 Illinois PGA Teacher of the Year Award, the 2000 PGA National Teacher of the Year Award, Golf Digest's Best 50 Teacher since the ranking was established, Golf Magazine's Top 100 Teacher, along with many other distinguished speaking accolades. The relationship with V1 Sports and Doc Suttie, which Gary will elaborate on, goes back to our company's early days. Founded in 1995, V1 Sports offers hardware and software solutions to capture, review, and analyze athletic movement, and is the pioneer in delivering seamless voiceover video lessons with integrated telestration. With more than 10,000 coaches and 3 million athletes worldwide, V1 Sports has become the preferred video analysis solution for the most respected coaches, instructors, athletes, and training facilities in the world. So it's just great to have you guys on. I want to just introduce this book that was thrown at me by my father-in-law, and that's my first introduction to Jim Suttie, which is Your Perfect Swing. So I got pretty familiar with my father-in-law, golf nut, who would travel to see Dr. Suttie and get instruction from him. And it's just great to have you on, Doc, and Gary with the history of E1 and your relationship with Doc. It's going to be a fun hour.
Thanks, Derek.
Thank you, Derek.
So I just wanted to just quickly run through what we plan to discuss. I know it's going to kind of be a little bit loose and relaxed, but we'll just discuss Doc's path through golf instruction, the evolution of video feedback from VCR to where we are today, the power of high-speed video as a feedback mechanism in golf instruction, the preferred camera views that Doc likes to use, and how to use high-speed video to help your students improve, ways to conduct online golf lessons, creating a library for every student, when technology went wrong, Doc's perspective on studio design, lighting, and the role that V1 Sports can play. And then we'll have Doc perform a live analysis of a student with some swing telestrations. We'll answer some questions, then we'll just quickly show you how to work through V1 if you want to sign up for any trials or learn more about subscription services or hardware solutions. So, Gary, I'll kind of let you and Doc kind of take it over with where we want to start. There.
I'd like to thank you, Derek, for the wonderful introduction. And, I want to share, too, going back 20 plus years with V1 and with Doc Suttie, V1 learned a lot from Doc. Doc learned a lot from V1. So we kind of had a very good partnership. And as we go through this, the evolution of the technology has changed dramatically from, as Derek mentioned, VHS tapes, VCRs, old cameras, half a mile of cable. The bottom line to the product is we're still using video, and we're delivering the lesson to the students. So Doc has been kind of a pioneer in technology, and, Doc and I, we're going to have fun today. We're comfortable with each other, but over the 20 years, I can tell you we've wrestled a lot with technology. Doc has chewed me out. I've yelled back at him because the bottom line is Doc has been all over this country. Typically, he taught in Florida in the winter, back to Chicago in the summer months. So all during that process, we disassembled everything and reassembled everything. And guess what? It didn't always work. So Doc, kind of has that very high expectation. You plug it in and away you go. That's not how technology works. So I'm sharing that with everybody in the audience today because in real life, that's the way it is. In my little recommendation and insight into that is, and I've been on with a lot of our customers that, that are just blowing a gasket and really getting angry. I says, time out for 1 second. Did anybody die? No. I says, we're okay then. So the bottom line is, we can always recover. Don't be overly dependent on anything. if you can just capture the guy's swing, you can do the lesson anytime. So, and I'm going to pick on you here a little bit, Doc, very quickly, is that, you know, you're a good example of a good coach, but you're not a technology wizard. You're pretty good, but not a wizard. So we designed V1 to be used by the coach. We want to keep it simple. That's always been a design. And I can tell you, sharing with Doc and many of our other customers and instructors, is that that's very important. We can make this thing do somersaults and side twists and all that. But the bottom line, it's got to be functional and easy to use for the coach and not have to hire a technician to be able to run V1. So I wanted to preface that, and I'm going to turn it over to Doc a little bit to share what he wants to talk about his history with V1.
Oh, thanks, Gary. Yeah, V1. The reason I picked V1, you guys were the first ones to come out with video, and I did my degree in biomechanics, where we did high-speed film. We had this huge screen in front of me where I had to digitize every joint in the body, and I kind of addicted to film analysis, and I said, I don't want to do this. You know, I wanted something simpler. And you guys were always the simplest and still remain the simplest. And a student can absorb stuff that is coming out now, and except for what you guys do. You guys do it simple, and that's why I've remained with you. And your analysis is good, 2D analysis, even though they're doing 3D everywhere, but still 2D analysis is all you need, you know, and that's why I believe your system is the best. There's no doubt about it. I mean, I've tried them all, so I can tell you, if a guy is going to do some feedback video, he better be talking to Gary Pallas or Derek there. So
Appreciate that, Doc. I mean, talk a little bit about how you've seen that evolution from VCR to today, and just how much the time went into that to make sure that your students were receiving the quality that they were paying for, but now to today, where it's just so quickly right on their phone. And, you know, just what's your opinion on just that progress?
Well, the more instant the feedback, the better the learning. I've always said I can teach you, but I can't learn you. And the more instantaneous the feedback, the quicker the learning. And Gary remembers when I put the monitors in the ground and people saw every swing they made. They looked at it and said, oh, that's wrong. Oh, that's right. So this is kind of what I tried to do. I tried to give the best feedback available, because I am more really into the learning than I am into the video aspect of it, even though the learning changes. But I think that, you know, people might say, well, I'm not a visual learner. Well, you know what? Everybody's a visual learner. Once you see what you're doing, you all of a sudden become a visual learner. And that's why I think visual learning is the best way to tell a person how they're swinging, what they should be doing, and proceed to that learning process.
Great. Gary, anything to add there?
Yeah, I just, you know, not to, you know, kind of just V1, but, you know, just exactly what Doc shared, the monitor in the ground. You know, every instructor we have out there, we put our ears and we listen to the instructor to improve the V1 system. So in that regard, V1 is set up as your partner. We are your partner. You can leave us anytime, so we want to earn your business. We have that. V1 gets better with your feedback. Every time Doc says something, and I tell him, Doc, that's a wonderful, wonderful feedback. Thank you. And then, you know, it's not always true, but I tell him that anyway. So it's fine. And V1 truly, you know, earns the business. We are in business to be reactive to our instructors' needs. And we really want you to be the best. So that's why, you know, drawing a line is a simple thing. So we've kind of evolved into the best practices for our instructors, going, here's what we've got thousands of customers that we've sifted through their methodologies, and we share that with our instructors, Doc being one of them, and we share that. So we've got a pretty good library of best practices, not just to draw lines, and we're very, very big on training. We want you to be the best, so we don't want to shortcut that at all and say, here's the system, good luck, and go for it. So there's the devil's in the detail. We're not going to go through all the detail today with all the systems, you know, the cables, the wires, the DVDs, blah, blah, blah. We're going to keep it simple, but we want to focus on the technology is there. We're there to support you, and we're there to train you. That I really wanted to add that. Thank you, Derek and Doc.
Yeah. I mean, the way I put it, Gary, to a lot of these instructors, you have instructors that teach for the entire day, and you have some professionals that may be only teaching 15% of their job. But whoever they're taking that lesson, whoever they're giving that lesson to, that person doesn't care. They still want an excellent lesson. They still want excellent technology. So if you're teaching only 15% of the day or 100% of your time, V1 can deliver the solutions that your student can expect because they are the paying customer. So, Doc, it'd be great to hear about, since you are a believer in the visual learning and the video analysis solutions, like what are some of your preferred camera views? You know, we talk so much about down the line and face on, but there's a lot of different angles that we can film a student and a player at, and just elaborate a little bit on how you really like to monitor and watch the student.
Well, Derek, I like the front view. Frontal view gives you the things that I learned from the frontal view are the centerness of impact, centerness of rotational stuff, if a person's sliding, or what they're doing with their lateral and up and down movement. So you do learn a lot about right, left movement, up, down movement, and you learn, you know, where the bottom of the arc is. So there's a lot of stuff from every angle that you learn, but one thing I have learned that the student can only do about 2 or 3 things in a golf lesson. So one of the things I would warn people that are using a video is to keep it simple for the student. Maybe take 2 or 3 things from and work on those 2 or 3 things. Don't try to absorb them in minutia and detail. Down the line camera is very important, and there's 2 angles you can look at. You can look at directly down the line on the ball flight, which will give you a good sample of the swing plane. Or you can look at the hand line. But in either case, what the best ball strikers, they come back to basically where they were at the point of address. They don't have their hands high or low. And you can tell where the plane is at the top and how they slot the club coming down, how they're rotating their hips. There's so many things that you learn as you go on. And I think I've kind of brought in the rear view. Rear view, I see what the hips are doing, the angle of the spine at the top, how the legs are being used. And then myself, I have an overhead camera where I can see exactly where impact is, the bottom of the swing arc and how the shoulders are turning. So I try to, I maybe work on 1 or 2 angles at a time, but generally I won't put 3, 4 angles up there at once because, again, you don't want to confuse the student, but we want to usually work on 1 or 2 angles at the most during a lesson. Those are the 4 basic angles I've used.
The one overhead I always thought was pretty intriguing. I mean, it's not a common camera angle that most students will experience, and I think it's a nice alternative and a nice angle for them to really see, like you said, that impact position. So you talked about how to use high-speed video to help the student improve. Keep it simple, you know, 1 view, 2 views max at a time. How about the drills? So when I used to teach, it was like, what did you work on since I last spent time with you? I didn't have any time, you know. So you just were like going back over a lot of the things you did in the last lesson. So talk a little bit about drills and including like pre-filmed or generic drills, and how much have you found that to help the student progress during the time that you're away, so when that next lesson comes, there's some meaningful progress?
Drills are great. It gives you a feel for what you're trying to do, and that's what a drill is. You're drilling, I call it drilling to skill. For example, if a guy is sliding and flipping the club at the bottom as a result, I may say, put your heels together and put your feet together and just rotate your body. And I found out body types and the way people are built has a lot to do with how they move. You got to look at a guy that is older, a guy that's younger. They're going to move differently, so you can't teach them the same way, and you can't just put a pro that's 22 years old up there against a 70-year-old man and say, well, look at him, he's doing this way right here, and here's a drill to fix it. But the drills, I think, are very, very important to leave a student with a drill or something that they can take to improve what they're doing, like sliding, for example. Like I say, if they're sliding too much and flipping the club at the bottom, you would give them a drill to stop that. Maybe a punch cut drill to stop them from flipping their hands at the bottom, or any number of drills. If they're not transferring weight properly, you might say, well, go to the top of your swing and just completely lift your left foot off the ground, and let's see how you're turning and getting your weight into the inside of your back foot. So I think drills give you the feel, and the V1 shows if you're doing it right, and the video helps you with all that. I mean, otherwise you don't know if you're doing it right. So this is why your system is so good, Gary and Derek, is because you can really see what you're doing and use a drill to feel what you're doing, and at the same time visually look at that.
Yeah, thoughts, Gary, on that? I mean,
yeah, and thank you, Doc. I mean, part of our lesson best practices is some of the most powerful tools that our instructors use are the compare tool, and Doc will address compare. He mentioned comparing a 70-year-old student to a 22-year-old tour player. It's not effective. So the compare function is very practical, in my opinion, that you compare the student from where Doc started, let's say in May, let's look at you in June to see if there's any progress within the student's own progress. Then you can also put up the comparison with a model, which is the tour player, excuse me, and which shows progress. So one of the big questions that I always ask our instructors, we have big instructors, big groups, small groups, is how do you know, Mr. Instructor, if you're doing a good job? How do you prepare when that guy's coming in for that 1 hour lesson? So a couple of things that I hear, Doc prepares. He just doesn't come in and go, yeah, I remember you. Your name's Greg, right? No, it says, Doc, it's Gary. And yeah, we were working on your grip last time. It says, no, Doc, we were working on my takeaway. Doc doesn't do that. Because Doc now is doing all the lessons online, he can look back at the prior lessons he did. He knows precisely that he was working on my takeaway. So when I come in, V1 also has the picture. Hi, Gary, how are you doing? It's perfect. Last time you were here, Gary, we were working on your takeaway. How's that going? Guess what? I'm the student. I feel so comfortable working with my instructor because he knows exactly, not like we're starting from scratch again. And I feel better when I'm digging into my wallet, digging out $150. So I think being prepared as the instructor is quality. Make sure you do that as part of your standard business. The other part I heard Doc just say is some of the terms that a lot of students give us feedback is you're using a lot of computer jargon. I'm a 15, I'm a 20 handicap. You're laid off. No, I'm not laid off. I have a job. You're over the top. Well, that's my personality. Your grip is strong. Your grip is weak. when our instructors do a good job, they explain those terms. They put the video up and actually draw the line and go, this is what over the top means. We did something with Doc on grips. It was wonderful. I was a perfect example of Doc says, Gary, you need to strengthen your grip. Well, what I was doing was squeezing the club harder. No, Doc was moving my hands around. A very, very good illustration of this is what we need to do. And this is how we need to talk simple to our customers, our students, so that they feel good. You know, the bottom line is you want the student to walk away and go, that was fun. I understood. I want more. That's a successful experience for your customer.
That's great, Gary and Doc. So I wanted to just kind of share our screen and get into the V1 software a little bit here. And one of our next talking points, and we might flip these around, is conducting the internet and remote lesson and then creating the library for each student. And you know, that's such an important aspect. Like when you're starting to work with so many students, like you said, what was the last thing we covered? So when you are working through V1, this is your student database, and you can create a profile or a card for everybody that you're working with, their contact, email, phone number, notes of what you're working on. And then everything that you do with recording a swing and a lesson is automatically assigned. That student's name will come up to the top left, and anything that you've stored specifically for them will be in these bins. Model swings from a tour comparison, past lessons, drills, your favorite models. And then, you know, it's just easy to click through, and I've labeled these as to some of the grips that Gary was talking about, and that just makes it easier for the instructor to then begin their analysis and perform that internet lesson, which is through our academy here. You know, the student is selected, you begin the lesson, and then the instructor can speak for 30 minutes. Hopefully it's not that long, but we like to keep it somewhat, like we said, simplifying it for the student and making it easy for them to understand. Gary and Doc, I'll let you kind of talk about the importance of a library of students and being able to record and deliver those internet and remote lessons. Remote lessons have been something that's really picked up over this last 3 months during the pandemic. And, you know, we've been a solution for so many instructors that are staying connected with their students through remote lessons, through our app platform, and just keeping them fresh. So when they pick back up to in-person lessons, you know, they're not as rusty and they can really hit the ground running. So I'll let you two kind of talk a little bit about just our organizational aspect of that and delivering the remote internet lesson.
Okay, Doc, I'm going to just preface. I actually sent Doc some swings over the internet, so don't expect your student to send swings in a perfect hitting environment. And if, Derek, you bring up one of the swings, I was having problems. I filmed out in the grass, a face on and down the line view. Obviously, I'm not at a golf course, but for Doc, the important part is that Doc said, Gary, make sure the camera is going somewhere between hands and clubs down the line view in approximately waist high. So we try to do that. The V1 software actually helps prompt the student with a silhouette so the student can kind of position the camera accordingly. The other part is that when I send Doc a swing, I did it mistakenly the first time. I put the club down, I put a tee, and I was moving around. The video clip was somewhere between 12 and 14 seconds. A golf swing is roughly 3 seconds, if that. Trim the video, get the video trimmed. It'll make it easier for you as the instructor to be able to analyze that. And the beauty is the V1 platform, without going into a bunch of detail, very conducive to delivering, notifying the instructor. Doc gets an email. It goes to his inbox. My swing is sitting there as though I visited Doc face to face. So Corona is a bad thing. Believe it or not, we had our instructor base. They weren't sitting around going, oh man, what am I going to do? We had hundreds of calls going, how do I do remote lessons? And I'm not saying this is a windfall, not by any stretch of the imagination, but the world is, as I mentioned, Doc teaches in, you know, up north, he teaches down south, now he's out west. His students can be anywhere literally in the world, and they are, and send them the swings, and Doc can give very, very articulate feedback. So, Doc, I'm going to pass it to you because when I sent you a swing, what are you looking for? What kind of feedback do you need to give back to your student?
Well, all that's very good, Gary, but I have to say this. I always ask, the first question I ask the student is this: what do you want out of the lesson? It's not what I want or how pretty I want to make his golf swing, but I want to make sure that he's got good ball flight when the lesson is done. And then I start working on impact, second thing, and then the third thing is the swing. And the swing creates the other two, of course. And so that's why the video is such a valuable device to have, because it's the only way to improve. It's not the only way, but it's the best way to improve impact and ball flight. So I do a lot of internet lessons. I would say over time, people with this coronavirus going on and a lot of the stuff that's going on in the country right now, they just go in their backyard like you are right there, take a video of their swing and send it to me. I'll send it back to them with a couple ideas. I might tell them to hit a wiffle ball or just so they're hitting at something so they have some idea what their swing is doing. But that's really how simple it really is. You don't even need a golf course. And what I look for just basics. You know, I'm not a method teacher. I'm going to say, well, I want you in a good posture. The grip controls the club face. So I want a good grip. And I want to make sure you have a good turn and good weight transfer. Now, those are pretty simple stuff. But, you know, I can't tell you how important they are, you know, because that's really where it goes off. But the thing I see wrong with instruction in general is I think we try to hit too many subjects in one lesson, and the person gets nothing out of it. And the best lesson I've ever done is on the golf course with the camera. Then we come in and watch it on V1. And that's the best lesson you possibly could get. What do you think there, Gary, about that?
Well, and I totally agree. And I've gotten lessons from you in the past. And, you know, one time I think I was in Chicago and I wanted to hit the ball farther. And again, one of our wrestling matches, Doc, and I think you ultimately won. Your ultimate drill was, have you tried other sports? So now, so that was a joke, but on looking at the face on and down the line swings here, what do you do with a golf swing like this that really doesn't have much room for improvement?
Well, I like your hat there, Gary. It tends to match your shirt.
Yeah,
so,
the Detroit Tiger hat.
Yeah. Yeah, and I like the lines because I think the lines give you some indication of what you're doing. I generally put lines on your hips to see if there's too much sliding. But in analyzing a golfer, you know, if you're real tall, for example, you're going to have some lateral movement with your legs if you have real long legs. If you are short, you're going to be more of a rotary player. But you're going to find out that the golf swing is in general related to your body type and how you move your body. So there's not one swing fits all or one swing method fits all. In fact, one swing method, if a person has a method, he's going to probably fit it into 30% of all golfers. That's why I've always tried to stay with fundamentals and apply those fundamentals, how they work with a person's body. So I think it's very important to say, well, this is how you're built. This is your flexibility level. This is your swing style. And I'm going to help you with the fundamentals around what you have presently and not try to change the whole ball of wax.
I think that's great. And before we really dig into more of a solution for Gary here, I'd like to just hear Doc about when some of the technology went wrong and then his perspective on studio design and lighting and the role that V1 can play in that. That would be some good, you know, information, because technology is certainly a great tool, but it has some of its issues.
Technology has gone wrong in several respects, in my opinion. I like technology as an aid, but when you are totally dependent on technology and you forget about teaching, then it becomes a problem. For example, I don't know, the 3D technology is great, but we don't need it. You know, it's totally overkill, you might say. Um, and some teachers rely completely on the technology, and you know, there's a thing called teaching in there somewhere, and it's not just, hey, do it how the thing says you should do it, but you have to have some idea of I guess it comes from experience and watching a lot of people swing a golf club. Um, but I think technology has gone wrong in several respects, overkill, and trying to give the student too much at one time. But you guys have stayed right with what you do, which is why I've stayed right with you, because I think you're on the right track. And you don't give too much, you give just enough, and it's an aid. It's not you're not totally dependent on it.
The goal is to really help the instructor stay organized through technology. Yes, we provide great video analysis solutions and great drawing features and the ability to deliver online lessons. But at the end of the day, it's just keeping every student's information and all the content that you've gone through with them in an organized way. So 3 months down the road, you can quickly do a side-by-side comparison and show them that improvement. And that just makes it so much easier beyond the whole technology capacity that we're talking about. And you know, Gary, you can speak more to studio design and everything that, you know, V1 has done in the past with respect to home studios here that I'm showing from a customer in California to, I believe this might be one of our partners in the field in studio designs, Gary in action here discussing some of the technology, but would be great to hear like Doc's and, you know, idea of what makes it the right aspect of lighting and design and Gary's, you know, long history of helping provide those solutions.
Yeah, thank you very much. And, you know, again, we learned a lot, but sometimes I think me in particular, I'm very, very, I guess, strong-willed or feeling about keeping your studio neat and clean. I've been in a lot of studios that if you look at them, you've made an investment of, you know, thousands of dollars. You have cameras. As you can see, the cameras in this diagram are positioned. We have a face-on left-hand, face-on right-handed golfer, and a down-the-line view. But sometimes I go into studios and there's golf bags, there's aids, there's stuff that's outlining the perimeter of the hitting area, which cosmetically is terrible. And not only looking bad, think about the golfer. If you're filming a face-on view of the golfer and behind him you've got a slew of golf clubs, golf bags, all that does is it takes away from the golf swing. In a perfect environment, we like a very flat background with nothing behind it, so all you see is the golfer. The other part that, you know, just from doing a lot of installs is I personally don't like cables laying all over the place. Number one, yeah, they might look a little bit funky, but you can see in this area here, there really are no cables for people to walk on. So if you have a high traffic area, people are walking in and off. Eventually, they're going to trip over a cable. They're going to knock the camera down. We have hit detectors that they'll step on and break. And guess what? The phone call will come that doesn't work. So cosmetically, yeah, I like wall mounts, tripods secured in the appropriate position, cables, if appropriate, to run behind the walls. I like the monitor. We first learned from Doc, he says, get your shovel out, Gary. We're going to dig a hole because he wants his student looking down at his swing. Well, today, those were the older monitors. Today, we can't put a 50-incher in the ground, so we start to mount them on walls. So part of it is, in today's world, here's a cliche, a picture is worth 1,000 words. A video is worth 1,000 pictures. And that sounds kind of funny, but if you think about it, we're using cameras that capture between 200 and 300 frames a second, and a golf swing is 3 seconds. That's almost 1,000 pictures for that golf swing in high definition. That's the technology we're working with today. So on the counterpart of it, Yeah, you just don't go out and buy lights. These cameras can see things that your eyes can't. So if you see flickering and all that, that's why V1 is very particular on which lights you use as well. So all that goes into designing, whether it's a home studio, a studio that Doc may teach at as a business, the position of the lights. Those are in blue. Notice we don't position the lights over the golfer because that creates a shadow. We surround the golfer to eliminate all shadowing. The type of netting, whether you hit indoors or outdoors, I mean, it's how you want to teach, and V1 will fit the solution for you. And in a slight little thing on the top left, you can see the angle of the lights. It's not just hanging down. We tilt them toward the student a little bit. So it's the detail that makes your studio better. And because you're the instructor, you're going to deliver the medicine. But we want to put you in an environment to have the best office in the world, you might say.
For our participants around the world, if you have any questions, you can enter those in the chat window. We will certainly be happy to get through those shortly. But Doc, anything to elaborate on the studio design there from
Gary's? One thing on the lighting, you got to make sure that your learning center, if you have an open door, it's you're not hitting out into the setting sun or something like that, because the picture does get darker that way. So it's a matter of when you're setting out your studio, to make sure it's in the right direction, basically. So I guess sometimes you can't control that, but I might put that out there prior to building the studio, I suppose.
Great. I mean, it's the evolution of this where it's a balance, right? So many people are building simulators, which need dimly lit areas, but also want to do video analysis at the same time, or, maybe later. What's the balance like with that, Gary? When I want a simulator that needs very little light, but I also want to record my swing for analysis.
So great question, because a lot of our customers today, if you think about simulator business is skyrocketing. People are buying at their home. They range from $2,000 simulators all the way up to $25,000 simulators. So what we normally recommend in a simulator environment is, personally, you can see 3 banks of lights. This is going to be a detail. I prefer and recommend one switch to turn on the face on and face on light views, another switch for the down the line view. If you're going to run in a simulator environment, that's 2 choices. Actually, there's 3. I want to run simulator only, so play golf courses, driving range. Another choice is I just want to run the V1, no simulator. I'm using the background just to hit into, the plastic or the net, just using video. The other option, like we have at Superstores, they're running both and they run them concurrently. So there's where the balance is. We need light and dark at the same time. So there are certain specific projectors that are needed. You not just go by the Sony or Panasonic and go, boy, it's going to work, because it won't. There's a particular projector. We need the brightest lumens so you can still project while still lighting the golfer. So that is the key. There's little things like long throw, short throw, how far the projector should be from the screen. All that kind of fits into our plan when we look at a design and going, well, we're working with a 15 by 20 square footage, so kind of dictates what we'll do. But very important to know that we can run together concurrently. And most of our installs, quite honestly, do both. A lot of our customers are set up to do both simulator environments as well as the live video analysis using the V1. So the placement of the mats, the placement of the camera, and the placement of the lights are the key.
Question from Richard Strange is, if you are hitting out onto a driving range, covered bays, and they're not secure, is it still possible to use the high-speed cameras with the daylight only?
I guess I can answer that one. Yes. In fact, if you noticed the views that we did when I sent Doc my swings, I was hitting in a parking lot. Actually, natural daylight is the very best way to do video. It's there's a certain thing called the shutter speed, that the higher you make that, the more precise the club will look. There'll be less of a blur, so the better light is really going to dictate how well I can see that club head. So outdoors is the best, and yes, you can use the high-speed cameras. In fact, a lot of our instructors, you can use the high-speed camera. You can take it out of your bay and plug it into a laptop if you'd like. They normally don't use multiple cameras outside, and that's only for logistics and simplicity. So if you want to film a down-the-line view, you literally just put the tripod behind the golfer, have him take a swing. If you want to do the face-on view, you move the, excuse me, the camera to the face-on view and capture that. Now you can do your comparisons. The downside is it's two different swings versus indoor where you're capturing both, both views with one swing. So yes, you can do it. The other part too that we're, not really talked about, but think about your iPad. That thing is kind of right here. It's an all-inclusive. It has a very good camera. It has a microphone. You can do everything right here and use it as a video capture device or do your lesson. So it's really got the best of all worlds. And the camera is a 240 frame rate camera. So it's very powerful and very good.
Great. So we'll keep answering questions as they come. But now it'd be great to hear Doc kind of do a little analysis as to, we have a couple of Gary's and just kind of walk through his progression of what he first sees and how he goes about. What are some of his popular drawing tools when he is working with a student? And I can draw as you instruct, Doc, and just provide the insights that you like to work with.
Okay, so it's necessary to look at Gary's swing. I have to.
I love you, Doc. Be nice.
Okay. Is it coming up?
Your screen sharing is paused. Let me just start this over again here. Appreciate the patience. How about now?
Okay, so he's got a good posture. I would say alignment is very important, looking at the shoulder alignment. Shoulders at address should be parallel left, what I call parallel left. In other words, they're going to be parallel to the target line. You don't want them closed or open. And at impact, they shouldn't be too open either. That's one of the things that I think I've learned over the years. As I used to say, go ahead and open up, and I like to see the shoulders more square to closed at impact. You'll hit straighter shots doing that. See, so Gary has got kind of a
impact here.
There's his impact. So his shoulders are good, but his rear end has kind of pulled up underneath him, which is going to keep the face open. And so what I do generally is I go back to address, if you would, Derek. Okay, I put a line on his rear end. Generally, I'll put a straight line on his rear end down to the ground. No, the other way. I'm sorry, a vertical line. Yeah, like that. And then I go to impact. And see, that's going to be an open face generally, unless he's got a real flippy grip. So I'd like to see the rear end stay on that line as he turns. So you got a lot to work on there, Gary.
Thanks, Doc. Can you put up both views together, Derek?
Yeah.
I don't know if that would help Doc or not, but that way you see the face on and down the line concurrent. Yeah. Same club.
Okay. Now, on that view, what I would do is first picture I ever look at, and every student's swing is I'll take a close-up of the grip. And Gary's grip is, he's got a full-fingered grip, it looks like, but I'll take a close-up, and I'd like to get that grip closer together. Otherwise, it's going to use too much right hand. So that's why the best player I've seen that had that kind of grip was Moe Norman, and Moe would take a baseball grip and hit it straight every time. So I guess there's a lot of ways to do it. That's how I learned over the years. But first, that'd be the first picture I'd take, and then next picture I would probably take, I'd probably put a circle on his head there, and see how he's setting up to the ball. And I'd probably put a square box on his hips to see how his hips are moving. A rectangular box. And all right, now when I took it back, I would just watch how he took it back and see, because he has that grip, he has an earlier wrist set, and he lifts his body up a little bit, not turning as well as he's possibly could. He's got a really good turn. He could have a really good turn, but I think he's being a really good model here. So then coming through, I look at impact very carefully, always look at impact. And there's his impact. He's got a pretty good impact right there. A little bit of flip action after the hit. When you go one more frame, see, he's got a little flip there. And that's because his hips stop, that lifting up, pulling in towards. So what I would work on, I'd get his grip right in this lesson. And then the other thing I'd work on is having him maintain his spine angle. And those would be the two things I would work on, basically.
Spine angle from a down the line.
Down the line, right? I'd make sure that my angle was a little better. I might put a chair behind his rear end or something like that and say, well, have your buttocks hit it on the backswing, your right buttocks, and have your left buttocks hit it on the forward swing. And that will allow his right side to go through the shot better. And,
right.
And so that I'd make that, see, so he doesn't have all that. Some of that is flexibility. He's pretty tight in the hips. That's why he does it, I'm sure. So,
okay.
So that's a good example of lesson. I try to do one thing there, that the spine angle is the biggest problem.
Excellent.
Thank you, Doc. I will send the check.
Yeah. And let's see, any other questions here through the chat window? Let's see. This is from Stephen DeWitt. So what do you like to see, Doc, in weight distribution through the swing? Percentage of the weight at address, the top of the backswing, impact, and then finish. And if there's any drills that you could recommend with respect to that topic.
Okay, that's a good question, because weight transfer has a lot to do with how they move. I've noticed that if a guy is too erect at address, his weight will get back on his heels too much, and he'll move towards his toes. If he's too bent over at address, he'll start on his toes and go back to his heels. So weight distribution at address is a big topic. I sometimes just make sure they can get their toes up in the air at address, toe, heel, toe, heel, toe, heel, so they have a balance in the middle of the feet. And backswing wise, try to get it to the inside of the right heel and stay on the inside of the foot. Now, some people, maybe I'm getting a little too complicated here, but some people are more right eye dominant, and I found the right eye dominant guys are going to stay a lot more centered. They're going to be a little more on their left side as they make a backswing. They're not going to make a big weight transfer to the right. And so therefore I always ask them, what's your eye dominance? If they don't know, I test them, because that has a big effect on weight transfer. And if he's left eye dominant, might make a bigger move to the right on the backswing and get behind it, because he'll be able to see the ball better. But getting into the inside of the right heel on the backswing. Now, depending on the length of the legs, if they have short legs, most likely they're going to be what I call a pure rotator. A pure rotator is just going to move to the left. Now, if they got a little longer legs, they're going to have a little more lateral movement, and I allow that long as that impact is good with the left wrist, left arm, and club shaft being in one straight line right after the hit. So it goes right heel, ball of left foot on the transfer during the transfer of weight, and then left heel. So heel, toe, heel is the way the weight generally moves. And not in all cases, But that's the general idea right there. Mm-hmm.
From Garth Matson, if using the chair behind, are you okay with talking right hip deep and left hip deep instead of talking about turning?
Right hip deep. Yes, long as it doesn't increase the flex in the knees. If you increase the flex in the knees, the weight gets too much into the heel on the backswing.
Right.
So if you keep the flex in the knees the same and you don't increase the flex, it's fine. There would be no problem with that.
From Steve Deshane, what's the best drill for students with folding elbow at Bourne just after impact? They all see and understand and want to fix. I'm sure I follow that one, but do you follow that?
The best, I'm sorry, maybe I didn't catch the question right. Could you say again, Derek?
He said folding elbow
Uh-huh.
just after impact.
Oh, okay. Well, that's what I call a short release. There's several different types of releases depending on the grip type. Short releases generally occur with a guy like Corey Pavin has a short release. Elbows closer to the body and the club breaks up quicker right after impact. And it's usually a result of a very weak grip and usually a lower body that is not quite as active.
Great. The iron, this is from Peter Ojeda. How do you teach iron setup versus driver setup? I used to think you use the same swing, but on driver, because it is on a tee, we are hitting up. My issue is early extension with my driver and going under plane on the downswing.
So you get stuck probably, it sounds like. But if you get stuck, you might be too far back at address. And the club comes down too inside on the downswing. So I teach iron swing basically head more over the ball. And I used to have the head more behind the ball and too many thin shots occur, toe shots, etc. So I try to get you more on top of the ball with an iron and hit more up on the ball with the wood. But getting stuck could be a swing plane issue too. Kind of getting into many different ideas here. So I would have to see the swing to really to do it.
So this is from Timu Salonen. Generally, where would you start when a student is doing the most popular move, over the top swing?
What I would start with them, I'd have them swing or choke down on the club and take some right arm swings and try to say emulate throwing a ball underhand. And then he can identify with a natural move. And the reason that we all have some swing issues, and it doesn't matter who it is tension. And this is the best anti-tension drill that I know of. Just take some right arm swings only and try to turn. And then when he hits a ball, he probably will feel more underneath with his right side instead of over the top. And the other thing that he will do is get rid of a lot of tension. And I'll try to talk about tension and what it causes. But that would be the best way to do that.
Great. I'll want to hit it farther, right? This is from Kent Holiday. How do you teach increased club head speed?
Well, you can't buy a game, so you can't buy the driver. But
you worked with my father-in-law. You should know better than that.
Club head speed, take a club, turn it upside down, and swing it as fast as you can with both hands, your left hand and your right hand. And then go ahead and hit a ball. And club head speed squarely applied is really the answer. You really can't, I wouldn't say can't, but I would say within 5 to 8 miles an hour, you can increase your club head speed. if you're making the right sequential movement, if you're out of sequence, you'll lose speed. So sequence and timing is a big issue.
Gary, I know that your club head speed has really ramped up over the years, and working with Doc, certainly you can see the difference on that.
Yeah, thank you, Derek. That's appreciated. Checks in the mail.
There's so much, Doc, about the evolution of the swing. There's so much information, but the study of the ground is relatively new, ground force mechanics. What are your feelings and thoughts about the pressure mat from V1 and learning the ground pressure?
That's great. Ground reaction forces are unbelievable. I mean, they just put a guy in a Hall of Fame who sits in a chair and does exercise, or hits a golf ball, and he hits it. Oh, I don't know. He was hitting it 250 when I watched him, 260. But if you use the ground correctly, you can't. That's why they're hitting it so far now. Is on the backswing, it's similar, but they're making a real tight coil with not much hip turn. Downswing, they go down a lot, and they go into the ground. And as they come into the ball, they push up just as hard as they possibly can, and that increases the club head speed to a great degree. Now, they're great athletes, so I don't know if I would teach that on a normal basis, but that is what they're doing. And I think the mat that you guys have is just wonderful. Again, simplicity. The way you present it, it's so simple, and that's why I like the mat.
So time for a few more here from Omar Ali. Your best drill for separation in the transition from the backswing to the downswing.
Best drill for separation. Well, I'd say it comes before it. What I notice, if you have an incomplete turn, you start unwinding the upper half early. I would rather see a guy like a Sam Snead make too big a turn with the upper body. And shouldn't talk about Sam because he had the best swing I think I've ever seen. But it makes this big turn, and then he has plenty of time to separate. But if you cut the turn off, you have a short swing, it's more difficult. So I don't oftentimes shorten the golf swing, because when you shorten it, you sometimes shorten the turn. And the bigger the turn, the better the separation.
All right, I got one more here. Let's see. Outside of the camera angles again and drawing tools, what angle and drawing tool do you recommend? This is from Matt Albin for the over-the-top swing. So that student, what's the best angle down the line? Probably. I mean, what's the drawing tool that really
down the line for sure? And you look at what the right shoulder's doing. If it's working out, working down and in. I do like to draw a club on the shaft line. If I go back to Gary on down the line there and draw a line on his shaft, and then we can notice do the down. That's it. Now draw a line right on the shaft. Yeah, right there. And then I might draw another one on the starting on the shaft and go right to his neck. Right there. Now, I keep it somewhere in there if you can, and the backswing and downswing. It makes it really simple. So, and he's right there. And he's got that's simple as it can be, Got a lot of room there. Mm-hmm.
Certainly. All right, Gary. Anything else to add? I think this is a great hour and a great source of information. And Doc, is there anything you'd like to share with people to get in touch with you if they have other questions or they want to just pick your brain about?
Yeah, they can always write me an email, jim@jimsuttie.com, or if they want to send a video, I'm always available. Go through V1, of course. I always like to go through V1, use the drawing tools. But one last thing I'd like to say to everybody out there: don't get too involved in stuff. Keep it as simple as you can, and V1 keeps it simple, and that's why I have stayed with them. I've tried the other systems, and the other systems just complicate the matter. So
we appreciate that. And for all the instructors, this is our website to learn more information. The athletes have their own page. The coaches, if you want to learn to get a free trial of our software, this is the process you can go through. Sales at v1sports.com can answer any questions you have on hardware and software solutions. Beyond just the instructional aspect, as COVID and the pandemic hopefully slows down, we do provide on-site seminars and ongoing education, which is a great way to build camaraderie with instructors, share information, learning environments. This was a particular event we had at the Ballantine Golf Academy in Charlotte, North Carolina, more specifically focused on the pressure mat, but just an area of our business beyond these online webinars to help instructors continue to learn and make it easy for them, and just provide the great experience for the student to improve. So, Gary, anything else to add before we close it out?
I just want to thank everybody. Hope you picked up a few pointers and all that. We're going to be having future webinars on best practices for giving lessons. And I personally want to thank Doc. It's been a pleasure for 20 plus years working with you, and thank you for offering to participate in this, and look forward to continued success. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it.
All right, Doc. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mm-hmm.